Hello everybody, this is Toni Turner and welcome to the market now as of about 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday, May the 5th. The Labor Department reported this morning that U.S. job growth rebounded sharply in April and that the unemployment rate dropped to 4.4%, near a 10-year low, pointing to a tightening labor market that could seal the case for an interest rate increase next month despite moderate wage growth. Non-farm payrolls surged by 211,000 jobs last month, well above the monthly average of 185,000 this year, and a jump from the gain of just 79,000 in March. In France, centrist French presidential candidate Emmanuel Macron extended his lead in the polls over his far-right rival Marine Le Pen today, the final day of a volatile election campaign that has turned the country's politics upside down. The election is seen as the most important in France for decades, with two diametrically opposed views of the European Union and France's place in the world at stake. Now let's look at three charts that could give us some insight into the week to come. Our first chart is a chart of the S&P 500 spider, symbol SPY. This is a daily chart. And when I captured this chart today, the S&P 500 was higher, or the SPY. The SPY was trading at $239, and of course, which is about $23.90 on the S&P 500 itself. Now we know that the SPY made an all-time high on March 1st of $240.32, so we're right near that again. After it made that high, the SPY dipped down, fell just for one day, but then recovered below the 50-day moving average, jumped back up, fell back down again, made a very slightly higher low at $232.51, then rallied again and consolidated through this last week of earnings report. Now, I shouldn't say last week. There are more earnings to come in the next week or two. But now we are through the bulk of earnings season with a lot of the big high momentum companies have already reported. So as we can see now, the SPY is trading above its 50-day moving average, the green line, the 20-day moving average, the red line, certainly above its 200-day moving average, which we see down here coming in at about 225, and nicely above this trend line I've drawn from the middle of November 2016 that has nicely risen here. We've touched three lows here, so we could call this, it's an intermediate term trend line or a short term trend line, but it's certainly valid, and it comes up here at 235. Now as we look down at the 14-day RSI, we see that it's trading right near at about 60 and change, very near the 70 mark on the RSI scale. Now the 70 means that price is overbought. The SPY is not there yet. And of course, the MACD is trading just above its zero line, and that is positive. We're going to have to see next week if the S&P can keep up this momentum that it's had. Can it break higher? Can it move back through 240 and change and actually make a new high and maybe even continue this uptrend that it's in? Or will some people say, you know what, it's May and I'm going to go away? Some people who say this is as good as it's going to get, and of course nobody knows which way it'll go next, but some people who think that may do enough selling to let the S&P rest here and potentially even come down to some of this support I'm telling you at about 235 or at about 232, 231. That would be potential support for the S&P 500. So we'll have to see here if we're going to break out to the upside or if we're going to possibly take a rest here into the coming week. Some of this may have to do with the French election on Sunday. Now let's move on to our next chart, which is the Power Shares QQQ. As you all know, the Qs follow or represent the NASDAQ 100. This is the ETF that follows the NASDAQ 100. The top components in the QQQ are Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Intel, Facebook, and of course Apple, leading component. We can see and we know that the Qs have been very, very powerful this year, have come down, a similar pattern to the SPY, but come down and bounced dramatically in the last 2-3 weeks of earnings off of its 50-day moving average. When I capture this chart, the Qs are trading at $137.16. It made an all-time high this past Tuesday, May 2nd, at, I've got it here, $137.43. So we're in optimum, at an optimum level here. If I'm going to worry, and of course I'm a trader, so I worry, I'm going to notice here that price, right where I have it today at $137.16, is trading at a premium to its 200-day moving average at 11% premium. I kind of like it to stay, to be able to maintain the momentum it has. I like for any asset to stay somewhere within 10% of its 200-day moving average. I feel like this is almost getting to a point here of too much chocolate. My too much chocolate theory is that 1 or 2 pieces of chocolate tastes wonderful and it's good for you. But if you sit down and devour the whole box, then that's too much of a good thing, and sometimes we don't feel good. The PowerShares QQQ looks to me like it's moving into the too much chocolate phase here. If we look down at the 14-day RSI, we see that this line is in the overbought zone above the 70 line and indicating that indeed the QQQ is overbought. The MACD, of course, is moving higher, and it's very positive. But again, let's see next week or in the coming week, can the Qs continue to move higher, moving up over 137, say 25 or 50 or 60 cents, or at some point, and which point can it come down and take a rest here, possibly head back down toward its 50-day moving average. So time will tell, and only time will tell. Our final chart for the day is the SPDR S&P Homebuilder ETF, the XHB. Now, there are a couple of ETFs in this particular space. This one is the SPDR ETF. The XHB is the symbol. It has 37 holdings. Some of the top holdings in this are Masco, Home Depot, Fortune Brands, Lowe's, Whirlpool, Tempur Sealy International, Toll Brothers. So a lot of these are suppliers as well as the home builders themselves. As we can see here, the XHB came down and made a low in November of 2016. It became oversold. It dipped to a low down here of $30.91. Then rallied up at a gentle angle, moved back over its 20-day moving average, back over its 50-day, and has been moving gently upward ever since. Finally, in February, it moved for sure over its 50-day moving average and has been again in a gentle uptrend. The 50-day moving average is pretty much drawing a trend line for the XHB. It's recently moved up here to almost 38.50. Since then, it's pulled back to the 20-day moving average. Today, it is back down near the 20-day, just atop the 50-day moving average, and of course, the 200-day moving average is rising from below. The RSI here is neutral, the MACD just above the 0 line. I'm going to keep an eye on the SPDR S&P Homebuilder ETF, the XHB, into the coming week. If the market remains positive into next week, this may become a buying opportunity as long as it stays above the 50-day moving average. Should it fall to close below the 50-day moving average, then of course I would either exit the trade or would no longer be interested in it until it moves back up above this line again. So the 50-day moving average is my line in the sand here. If the XHB remains positive and above it, I may look at it again as a long-term or a long opportunity. If it does not, then I will be out. And now let's go on to this week's economic reports. But first, please join us this coming Monday, May 8th, for our next session of Toni's Market Club. We have a fantastic group of people, have a lot of new members this last week. We will talk about which side of the market to trade, have a mini trading lesson, and I'll give you stocks and ETFs that may become ripe for high potential trades. Now, as well as some of the material that I've just talked to you about in this webinar in Toni's Market Club, which of course is live, but we send the recording out as soon as we're finished. We talk about a lot more trading ideas like the XHB. We talk about stocks, we talk about ETFs, and again, you also get a mini trading lesson. This is a low-priced, high-value opportunity to learn more about the market, become a smarter trader, and make more money. So please join us. Again, for those who cannot attend our live session, there is no problem. The recording of our session is available just a couple of minutes after our session ends. For more information and to join, go to tonysmarketclub.com. And now for this week's economic reports. Not much going on Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday we have crude inventories as usual. Thursday we have our weekly jobless claims and our weekly natural gas inventories. Friday we have the CPI or Consumer Price Index, retail sales report, and the Michigan Sentiment Report. Again, join us for Toni's Market Club this coming Monday. Don't miss out on this terrific opportunity to raise your trading knowledge and your trading profits. Until next week, keep green on your screen. I'm Toni Turner, and this is The Market Now.